Hello everyone, I'm Santiago, and today I'm gonna be testing the Dark Souls franchise on the GTX 1650 Super. I'll be testing Dark Souls 1 Remastered, Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin, and in the end Dark Souls 3. So first on Dark Souls 1, I'm going to be using 4K maximum settings, and the game is still kept at 60 frames per second, so you cannot go past 60 in this case. I tried to have some effects on screen plus go into Blacktown, and it was pretty much at 60 all the time. I didn't have any problems whatsoever. While on the other hand, if you play the original version, the Prepare to Die edition, you have a lot of drops below 60 in this area. So I think they did a good job with this remaster, and not much else to say about it. The game runs just fine, so I'll talk to you again on Dark Souls 2. Now I'm testing Dark Souls 2, and again I'm using 4K maximum settings. This is the improved version, the Scholar of the First Sin, and it should have improved graphics, different enemy placement, and be a harder game in general, but I no longer have my save file. It was lost since it's not saved on the cloud. Modern problems, I guess. So I went into one of the first areas with many enemies on screen and started fighting those. There are drops in the frame rate when we go through a fog wall or we sit next to a bonfire. It seems to be a thing with many effects on screen. I didn't really mind it too much, I wasn't doing anything important while those drops were happening, but if you want to smooth those out, I recommend trying 1800p, which is 3200 by 1800, and if you go for a lower resolution like 1080p, you won't have any drops whatsoever, completely locked to 60 all the time, and I'll talk to you again on Dark Souls 3. And finally, Dark Souls 3. On this one I'll show you 1080p, 1440p and 4K, since this is the most demanding one in the series. For the testing I'll be going to Pharaoh Keep, one of those toxic areas that usually has performance issues on most Souls games, because there's a good amount of enemies with hair, there's also some wet surfaces and effects flying on the screen. I think it's a worst case scenario as far as I remember while playing this game. On 1080p for 60 frames per second, there was nothing I needed to do, just max settings and it goes there just fine. Then at 1440p I needed to lower to somewhere around medium settings. There were some drops into the mid 50s, but it wasn't a huge deal. Remember, this should be the worst case scenario. And in the end at 4K I had to target 30 frames per second using almost the same settings as at 1440p. And it wasn't terrible, it dropped below 30 sometimes when there were some effects on screen. But in other areas it shouldn't be as bad when there are many enemies showing up. Again, remember, worst case scenario, but if you don't mind lowering the resolution and you want 30 frames with the maximum graphics possible, maybe 1800p makes more sense. But anyway guys, that's about it. I hope you keep enjoying the video, thanks for watching and see you next time. Stay safe!